How's it going, guys? I'm the original Aerial Unicorn, and this is Auto Dysfunction. In today's episode, we're going to be working on the Mercury Mariner again, and just seeing what we can get done. I have some struts and shocks that I want to put on, but if there's time today, we might even get brakes on the vehicle today. And we're going to show you how to do this all along the way. So let's get right into it. For this repair, we're going to need our rear shocks, our front struts, and if we get to it, these front and rear rotor sets. The tools you're going to want is a impact socket or impact gun of some sort. You're going to want some wrenches and sockets and such. Get every size if you got them, but you're going to want a good range of them. You are going to need these trim tools for taking apart the interior trim, brake fluid, brake clean, some cleaning material for when the job gets messy, and you're going to want these pry bars. Alright, so let's talk about step one here. You're going to want to take your impact gun and loosen all the sockets on the vehicle. You're going to want to get the wheels off of the vehicle to get access to the suspension components. And also it's a lot easier to loosen the lug nuts when the vehicle is still sitting on the ground versus when you jack it up. When you jack the vehicle up, it may freewheel and you won't actually be able to get your wrench on there to break the lug nuts free. So I recommend break them free on the ground first. But let's get into it. So we're back here on the rear of the vehicle, and what you're going to want to do before you even start working on the rear shocks, unfortunately, you're going to have to take apart some of your trim. Yep. So if you got any loose things in the trunk, it's a good time to just take them, toss them out. You're going to want to remove your carpet. Next, you're going to need some trim tools. Let me go fetch those and I'll get started. Okay, after you're done removing the bumper trim, you're going to want to actually remove the side interior trim. On both sides, that is going to give you access to the top of the shock mount here in the rear. Without any further ado, let's just get into it. Now that you got the side trim apart, you should have access right there to the front shock. You don't have to take it completely out, just enough out that you can get access to that bolt, those two bolts there. Alright, let's do the other side. Okay, now that you have access to the rear shock, top of the rear shock, you're going to want to go ahead and loosen it up. So let's do that. Now that you have the rear shocks, the bolts loose back there, this is a good time to go ahead and take your rear wheels off. So let's take them off. We're back here in the bottom rear of the vehicle now, and next up you're going to want to gain access to this bolt here. You might want to wrench to hold one side on while you use the impact to take it off. But without further ado, let's grab those tools and get right to it. Alright guys, next you're going to want to jack up the rear bottom part of the shock mount. This is to relieve tension from the spring and the rest of the suspension components. That way you can actually get the shock out. Okay, your next step for setting up your new rear shock once you got it out of its little security holder is you're going to want to take part of the new hardware kit, put the first metals washer like so, and you're going to want to take the gasket and you want the thinnest side down so that's like that. And now you're going to want to just start getting it positioned into the vehicle. Next, you're going to want to jack up the rear of the vehicle to bring the shock back into the top of its mount. Be sure to check the alignment of your bolt going in as you're jacking. Jack it a little bit. Eyeball it, give it another pump. Yeah, it looks like it's going good. So you're going to want to jack it all the way. Now that you can see the threads clearly poking out of the hole, next up you're going to want to set up the gasket and spacer, basically reverse the way it went on the opposite side of the shocks. So you're going to want to go gasket first, then side up, spacer, and your first bolt. Just like that, you have your rear shocks in your 2006 Mercury Mariner. Just put the trim back together and you're good to go. Alright, now that we have the rear of the vehicle done, let's go ahead and dive into the front shocks. You're going to want to have your hood already propped open so you can get access to your top shock mounts. There's going to be 4 bolts you're going to want to loosen on each. After you have those bolts loose, you're going to want to go ahead and loosen these guys too, and take your wheel off first so you can actually get good access to those. Without any further ado, let's just start getting into it and taking stuff off. Alright, now that you have good access to the bottom bolts here holding in the strut, you're going to want to have a 18 impact socket and an 18 hand wrench so you can hold the one bolt as you're taking the other side off. Let's get into it. Now you're going to want to go ahead and back these off all the way. And just repeat that step for both sides of the vehicle. Next up, you're going to want to go ahead and back the bolts all the way out of your strut. So let's just get to that. Next up, you're gonna want to undo this sway bar link. And like that, it should be nice and loose and easy for you to take out. Voila! Well, let's drop it all the way and put the new one in. What else is being held in here? Ah, brake lines, my favorite. Okay, now that we have the old strut out of there, let's go ahead and put the new one in. Now that you got things more or less secure, you're going to want to tighten the top struts first. Now you're going to want to go back to your bottom struts and tighten them all the way. And just like that, guys, we have our front struts in. I'm the original very old unicorn, and I'll see you in the next episode of Auto Dysfunction.